Hi guys, and welcome to your first video on types of maps. We will be discussing in the class as we study all year long all of the different regions and continents around the world. But let's get started. Your first map is a political map. Okay, political maps are usually colored so that you can see the individual countries or states. So each state or each country would be colored a different color inside the borders of that political region. It makes it easy to compare size, shape, and location. Bold letters often make up the country's name so that they stand out. So if you're looking at a North American map, which is the first one we're going to be working on in the class, you would see across the top to the very far north would be Canada, and then in the center would be the United States, and then south of us would be Mexico. And so you would see those countries bolded above all others. Symbols, there's lots of symbols, and most maps will have a legend, so you know what those individual symbols mean. But you can tell that it's a capital because it will have a star, whether it's a circle with a star inside or just a plain star. And you can tell that those are the capital cities of either the countries or the states. And then all other cities will be indicated by some other symbol, typically just a round dot. Political maps also name certain physical features such as rivers and lakes. Here's an example of one. Of course, this is a world political map, and actually it's not even up to date because there's a couple countries I can see that are missing, but it gives you an idea of what a political map looks like, and you can see that the different countries are labeled. Now, if we were looking at a political map of the United States, you would see each of the states labeled. But again, this is a world map. The next type of map is a physical map. It has colors that make natural patterns stand out. So where your grasslands and savannas are, maybe where your mountains or your deserts are, you can see those based on the colors that are used on that map. And like I said, it can stand for vegetation, mountains, natural features. It names the big features. It makes them very easy to see. And it's also included on some political information such as boundaries. So you may see a physical map that has boundaries drawn on it, but they're not colored different colors. They're colored based on the natural features that are there. And here's an example of that. So you can still see all of the continents, and they're labeled so you know where different things are. But in the United States, here you can tell that this is going to be a mountain chain, and of course that's the Rocky Mountains. And then here is another mountain chain, and this is the Appalachians. Also, we have the lighter color. That's going to be desert type area. And then, of course, along the coast, you're going to see more greens, which includes coastlands and grasslands. So that gives you an idea of what a physical map looks like. A physical map tells you what's there physically, not which state it's in or which country, but what is actually on the land. The next map we're going to look at starts getting into special maps, and the first one is a climate map. And the climate map can tell you what a weather is like season by season or year after year. It has rainfalls and temperatures. It may also include wind speeds, things of that nature. And it shows how it's affected by elevation, distance from the ocean, and of course latitude. This is an example of a world climate map. This one is showing the different types of climates that you're going to find in different areas of the world, and based on the different types of climates we have. So whether it's tropical, which is going to be very humid and warm, or dry, which is where you're going to find most of your deserts. And then we get into temperate, and that's kind of what we're in, where we have seasons. So it's cold here some of the time, and it's warm here some of the time. And then the further north you go, where the blue is, of course, this is cold, and it stays cold. No, that doesn't mean it doesn't warm up, but it stays cold most of the year. They do have summer. We know that southern Canada has a summer. It doesn't get as hot as it does in Texas, and their summers are much shorter than ours. And then, of course, at the very top, we have the polar regions, which are, of course, our frozen tundras. Another special map would be a land use resource map. These maps show how land's being used. It might refer to vegetation, where crops are being grown, forest versus agriculture. So maybe the forestry, that's where we get our timber to build our houses and things of that nature. It would show mines and wells, like gold mines or oil wells. And then it could also show city zoning. So those are some other examples. And here is a world mineral map. So this would be a type of resource map. And it shows you around the world where minerals are being mined, whether it's uranium, silver, oil, iron, diamonds, coal, copper, gold. All of the different types of minerals are listed here in the legend. And then those mines are shown around where these minerals are being found. So oil, for example, we have some oil down here in Texas. Here's a world vegetation map. Okay, so this shows you where the tropical grasslands might be. So on the savannas of Africa. It will also show you where some subtropical areas are going to be. So in this area, still hot and humid. And of course, we've got the tropical rainforest, and that's blue. So here in Brazil, where the Amazon River is, and then over in Thailand, lots of tropical areas there. So this is another map that gives you more information, and this one is specific to vegetation, so where things grow and what types of things grow. Here's a wind map. So depending on the color, you can see the differences, and that is wind speed over land. So blue from dark to almost the turquoise is somewhere between 3 and 4 miles per hour. And then the darker it goes, the harder the wind blows. So down here on South America, lots and lots of wind. And then, of course, across the poles, there's lots and lots of wind there. Here's a U.S. wind map. Shows you how the wind blows around here. So depending again on your graph down here at the bottom that shows you the different miles or wind speeds, you can see where the wind blows the hardest. And of course, the darker the color, the harder the wind is blowing. Now we're into Texas, and this is a Texas wind map. So here's wind speed, and you can see that in Dallas, we fall kind of in the 4.5, so 4.5 miles per hour is about our wind speed. But if you get up into the Amarillo, where it's really flat and there's nothing to block the winds, it gets closer to 10 miles an hour. Okay, a contour map. Contour maps, this is another special map, and it shows lines that represent elevation. So how far you are from sea level. So if you're standing at the ocean and the beach, and that's where they meet, you're at 0 feet above sea level. And the further you move away from the beach, now not distance away, but height, like up in the mountains, the further up you go, the higher elevation you have. So I visited Phoenix this past summer, and we went from Phoenix over to Sedona, and we had to cross through the mountains. And we were at about, as we went up through the mountain pass, about 4,500 feet above sea level, which is much higher than what we are here in Dallas. Okay, so this map will show you that down here, this first contour line, that's 1,000 feet above sea level. Then the next one is 2,000 feet, all the way to the center, which is going to be 13,000 feet above sea level, which means this is a very tall mountain, and here in this area is going to be another very tall mountain. Elevation map. This one is showing you basically the same information in a different way. So we can see that here where the green is, that's going to be our lower sea levels. And as we go from dark green to lighter green, we're moving up above sea level until we get over here in the brown. And of course, this is our mountainous area. And this is where we know we are the highest points above sea level. And again, here is another mountain chain. This is the Appalachian Mountain Chain. Not as high as the Rockies because the color difference is not as drastic, but still you can tell there's a mountain chain that runs in the northeast part of our country. Here's an elevation of a map of Texas, and this one is even a little more different. This one is shown by color. So here is 0, and of course that's going to be down here by the ocean because in here would be the Gulf of Mexico. And so 0 to about 1,000 feet is going to be from here about in this area, which would encompass Dallas. So we're about 1,000 feet above sea level. And the further we move and the more that color changes, we can see that we're moving up higher above sea level. So most of this area is going to be between 2,000 and 3,000 feet above sea level. But if we get right over in here, we have a small mountain chain that comes out into West Texas. And these are where we're going to see elevations of about 7,000 feet above sea level. So elevation can be shown in lots of different ways. The next map, and I think it's the last map, is topographical maps. These maps generally represent a small area with a lot of detail, and they show you the elevation with contour lines, natural and man-made features. And so this is a topographical map of Dallas. And so we can see the contour lines where the land is going up and where it's going down. Now, for us, they don't give us a scale to show us what these lines actually mean, but we know that there's a change in elevation, which means there's some hills in this area. Now, they're not major hills, but if you were walking up the street, you would notice that you were walking uphill. Also, it has the rivers listed here. Here's the Trinity. This is the West Fork of the Trinity, and then here is the Trinity River that runs north and again south. We have some smaller creeks that are noted in blue, so you can see those. That's it on maps, guys. Go ahead and take a look at the quiz. Don't worry about it. I'm probably not going to grade it, but I do need for you to complete it so that I can know what information you know and what you don't, and we still need to cover in class. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow.